welcome to Kankakee Podcast, where we talk about the people and places of Kankakee County. I'm Jake LaMore, and today we are on location, and hopefully will be the first of many episodes where we're finally diving in to some of the manufacturers that are housed here in Kankakee County. And the first one up that we are visiting today is smack dab in the middle of Bradley, pretty much at the close to the corner of North Street and Route 50. And that is what you may know as Crown Cork and Seal, but today it's actually known as Crown Holdings.
That is
correct. Yeah. And we're welcomed by Juan Guzman, right?
Yes, sir.
And Ray Garcia from Crown Holdings here in Bradley. Welcome, guys.
Well, thank you. Welcome to the plant.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, we're sitting in one of their conference rooms right now, and I don't know. I have to figure this out in post production, but I don't know if you can hear like the thud that's happening right now. But there's this constant thud. What I thought when I first visited here, like a month ago, I was like, oh, it sounds like a washer. Like It just sounds like a washer going. But that is actually the stamper, right? Is
Cupper.
that Cupper? Okay. No, I knew it was something. Stamper, Cupper. I was close. Anyway, so if you happen to hear any of that at any point, that's what that is. But anyway, so I guess where do we start with Crown? I mean, I guess we could talk about, so to Juan, you are the plant manager, right? Ray, I forgot your title.
I'm the human resources manager.
Human resources manager. Thank you.
So
one
of the titles.
One of the
one of the titles.
We all have many titles that we carry, right?
New conference room. You can add interior designer.
Okay. I mean, it's impressive. Yeah. I was going to ask who you hired for your interior design.
Just design. I didn't do any of the work. But just told them what we wanted.
So I guess, we can maybe start with just a little bit about yourselves, and then we can kind of get into the history of Crown.
Absolutely.
Juan, I mean, what's your story?
Well, when I was 19 years old, worked for a company called American National Can, which then turned into Wrexham. Was there for 25 years before someone in Crown reached out to me and said, I would like for you to come work for me. And guess what? 34 years later, here I am making cans, still making cans. So born and raised on the south side of Chicago. So Chicago is home to me, even though sometimes I always consider, why do I want to be here? Chicago will always be home for me, irregardless of some of the good and bad going on. Yes, it'll definitely be home.
Yeah.
So
you've been with Crown then for how long now?
Just shy of 10 years.
Okay.
Yes.
And you have been, if I remember from kind of a pre-interview conversation we've had, you've moved all over the U.S.
When I was in my past life, I would travel all over the country to help struggling plants with some of their processes and maintenance practices. When I joined Crown, my first assignment was in Cheraw, South Carolina, ungodly hot with some huge bugs because they don't go through the freeze cycle like we do here.
No.
So,
everything is bigger. The ants are bigger. They're all
absolutely huge. Some of the insects down there you can put a saddle on and ride. That's how big they are. But it actually feels good to be back in Chicago, coming back home.
And then Ray, what's your story?
Yeah, so also originally from Chicago. I don't think me and Juan were too far away from where we were raised. And then I've been in Bourbonnais now for the past about 30 years. I've been with Crown just under 5, but I've kind of stretched all facets of my professional career in different areas of business. Originally before Crown, I was in the casino industry. So I worked at Harris Joliet in the casino industry. And then before that, logistics in Aurora. and then manufacturing back here in Bourbonnais.
Has it been all human resources?
It was once I graduated college is when it turned more into human resources. So I've been in human resources for about 14, 15 years. Before that, I was just working my way up through companies and trying to get through school. So about 15 years human resource experience across several different divisions of different types of business.
The world of human resources, I feel like, can be kind of foggy to some people. And how do you like to explain what human resources are?
I'm whatever is in need of the employees at that time. So that could be anything from, a support function. Juan knows I like to kind of ingrain myself in all areas of the business, not just human resources. I like to get involved in what's going on in maintenance, production, quality as well. But that could be anything from, payroll, benefits. Sometimes I'm a counselor. Sometimes I'm a parent. Sometimes I'm an emotional support person just to talk to. Not everything, we try to get away from that stigma of HR is like, oh, you're in HR's office, boom, you're in trouble. No, I've had several conversations where I'm like, hey, this is off the record, just between me and you, another person. Let's figure out what it is that you need. How do we solve your problem? And that's a range of obviously a million different, examples of what could happen when I talk to anybody. But my main goal is to be a good support to whoever needs it at the time, regardless of what the issue is. Yeah,
I mean, that's definitely a 21st century approach to human resources, which is much different because, like you said, usually you think you wind up in the human resources office. It's like,
we try to get away from that as much as we possibly can. And that's through our engagement, and our engagement with our employees. And Juan's given his staff kind of free range of like what that engagement looks like. So we try to really change what that looks like.
So I guess let's get to the meat and potatoes then of Crown. So how long has Crown been a company?
Well, actually, Crown started in 1892. And the reason why it is called Crown, Cork, and Seal, back then the big thing was bottles. So the cap is what we call the crown. Inside it, to seal it, was cork. And once it's pressed together, it seals. And that's how Crown, Cork, and Seal got its name. So yes, we have been around 129 plus years. Started out originally in Baltimore, then headquarters moved to Philadelphia. So yes, it has been an American-owned company for over 100 years.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Crown has plants in other parts of the world too?
Yes.
No. Yeah, okay.
We are the world's second largest packaging company.
I think it's 30 plus countries, over 40,000 employees.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That is a lot.
It is a lot.
And where does the Bradley plant fall in that scale of all the different plants?
Well, we have several divisions. We have the food division. We have the aerosol division. We happen to be the beverage division in North America. We were at one point, I would say 5 years ago, very inefficient. And the Bradley plant was a little, I would say, towards the bottom. But we've made a lot of changes, took the time to hire the right employee, redevelop our skills and training. And 5 years later, let's fast forward. Now we're at least in the upper 1/3 when it comes to cost, efficiency, so on and so forth. So we kind of lead the pack.
Yeah.
So we're seen as a good legacy plant. And what a legacy plant is, it's usually a plant that's been around for 30 plus years.
And this plant is the 1960s, right? Or is it further back than that?
Well, the building itself originally, from my understanding, was built in the 30s. This used to be a glass and mirror factory. Crown purchased this building in 1969. So yes, we've been here a while.
Yeah, you're definitely a legacy plant at this point. Yeah. And how many plants are in North America then as far as the beverage division goes?
I want to say there are 13 can plants. And there are 3 what we called end centers, which produces the lid. So we here strictly make 12-ounce cans. We have other facilities that are conversion plants. They can make 7.5 ounce, 8 ounce, regular 12 ounce, what we call 12 ounce sleek, which is your tall, skinnier can, kind of like a Red Bull in your energy drink. And we also have plants that make 16 ounce. So yes, but here in Bradley, we're strictly a 12 ounce standard can.
And that's all you do.
That is
You
correct.
just make the can from start to finish, except for you don't fill it.
Correct.
Everything but filling.
Our finished product is an empty container that we ship to the bottler and filler. Yes.
Okay.
So they fill it, seal it, package it, and then it goes to market.
So since 1969, I guess, of Crown being here in Bradley, has it always, from that time, 12 ounce cans to now, or back then? Do you have any knowledge?
12 ounce cans. This plant has always been 12 ounce cans. The big switch in this plant was in the mid 80s. We used to make steel cans. Okay. So this plant started out as steel cans, and in the mid 80s, equipment got converted to making them out of aluminum. So this particular plant, almost all can plants are called a 2-piece can. So the can itself, the container, is one piece, and then the lid is your second piece. There were plants, and don't know the full history since coming to Kankakee. I came here in 2018, but the original steel can was a 3-piece. So you would have the bottom, the top, and then it would weld. Yes, It would be a cylinder that would be welded. So that was what we would consider a 3-piece. But now we're strictly 2-piece.
Yeah, and the equipment you have here is 30, 40 years old, right?
That is correct.
Yeah. So
we have some equipment that's even approaching 50 plus years.
Well, I guess that they don't make them like they used to.
No, they don't.
It definitely applies here.
This used to be a 1.7 billion can plant per year. Again, some of the equipment has its limitations. They can only go so fast. So doing this for so long, God, I almost hate to say so long. This seems like such a long time. I've been around a while. This used to be a 1.7 billion can plant a year. Since this management team has come together, this is now a 2 billion can plant a year. And everybody keeps asking me, oh my God, how did you do it? Did you speed it up? Did you speed up the equipment? Quite the opposite. We actually slowed the equipment down. It's important for the plant to understand and know what are the limitations of the equipment in a can plant. Some folks think that you get more cans by speeding it up. Well, when you have 40, 50 plus year old equipment, speeding up, in my opinion, is not the answer. Because can you speed it up? Absolutely. For how long? Who knows? When you have aged equipment and you push it way beyond its limitations, that is short term. Your maintenance costs are actually going to increase because now you're breaking things. And here's the thing, with equipment that's 40, 50 plus years, it's getting harder and harder to find parts for.
You're going to have to get them made and fabricated, right?
Absolutely. There are some parts that we send out to a shop, yes, that we do have to fabricate because they are obsolete. Doesn't mean that it's not good. So what we have done, imagine being in a car, you slam on the gas pedal to go 100 miles an hour and then have to slow down because the stop sign's at the end of the block. That makes no sense. So in this case, sometimes, as they say, winning the race, seeing it more efficiently is by slowing down. That is what we've done here. So instead of having huge peaks and valleys, what I would call the peak is having wonderful record-breaking production days. And then the valleys are the days where you barely make anything because you're dealing with breakdowns and so on and so forth. That's why I say we made more cans by slowing the equipment down, being nice and steady, get to one pace, master that pace, and then slowly come up. Now, what are the issues that you're seeing? Deal with those. Come up a little more, come up a little more. Now we are at the point where I'm pretty comfortable to say that we have reached that point where if we try to go any faster, one, the equipment's not capable of it. But two, if we try to go any faster, we're going to run into more breakdowns, which means more money for maintenance, so on and so forth. We found our happy spot, and that's where we're going to stay.
That is so many cans. You said 2.6 billion a year?
2 billion.
2 billion.
Yeah.
Yes.
2 billion a year.
Yes.
How does the can process work? And who are you making? You're making cans for Coca-Cola,
Pepsi, Kroger, you name it. We make them for everybody. Dr. Pepper.
Yeah, even for local businesses like Brickstone Brewery, we produce their cans as well.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So how does from start to finish, how does a can get made here?
Well, we get our aluminum. No, we do not smelt. So our coils, aluminum coils, come from 2 mills that are located in Kentucky. They are shipped here. On average, they're about 23 to 25,000 pound coils.
Oh my gosh.
Yes, they are big coils. So imagine a sheet of aluminum. It unwinds, goes through the press, which you're hearing the thumping.
Yes.
Okay, so a circular disc is cut out. And then what we call the cupper, it's actually punching that circular disc into a cup. That cup then in turn through conveyance travels to horizontal presses, which we call, there's several names for them. They're either called a body maker or a wall ironing machine, which for short in the can business, we call it a WIM. I prefer body maker because it takes that cup and literally shapes that cup going through ironing rings, which is a process. And it stretches that aluminum out into the shape of a can.
And that's at that point, is that like the third, fourth step?
That is actually that would be considered like the second step.
That's the second step. Okay.
Yes. The third step is once that can is formed, it goes to a machine right next to it, usually 3 to 5 feet away, which is called a trimmer, because when you extrude that cup and iron it into a can, the top of the can has rough edges. So the trimmer cuts that can to usually pretty flat within a couple thousandths. And from there, it goes on to another conveyor to go to the fourth step, which is washing the can. So we have soluble oil to help cool the dyes and flush away some of the aluminum fines. That is what we have to wash off the cans. So the fourth step being the washer. And our washers, there are 6 stages. The first 2 stages are cleaning. The third, fourth, and fifth, and sixth are rinse stages. Okay. The 6th stage in that wash department, we put mobility enhancer on it. So it makes the can a little slick. Just imagine like a concentrated soap.
Yeah.
Okay. Where you get that nice slick feeling, because if you wash a can, which what we do, we use pure deionized water. If you have 2 aluminum cans touching up against each other, it's like sandpaper. They just will not move. That's why we have to add the mobility enhancer. So then the next step of that is the cans go through an oven because we have to dry them. After that, we put a coat of varnish at the bottom of the can to make it nice and slick. Again, if you have just raw aluminum, it's hard for that can to mobilize itself from one conveyor to the next. Step number 5 is when we decorate the can.
Okay, so that's your printing.
That is correct.
And what kind of, is it ink or what? Is it do you burn the image on aluminum? How does that work?
So the can comes in, just imagine a silver aluminum can because it has nothing on it. It loads itself onto a mandrel, and we have blankets. It's a printing blanket that puts the image onto the can. And people always ask me, is it different to make a Coke can versus Pepsi versus Dr. Pepper? No, the container is the same. The only thing that changes one design to the next is different print plates and different color ink. The container remains the same. Here in Bradley, we have just shy of 3,000 different labels.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
Boy, that's a lot to keep track of.
Yes, it is. So we make a lot of cans for quite a bit of customers.
And so is the process like full color printing? Is there 4 different inks that make all the different colors? Or is it literally like, okay, here's blue and then here's red and that kind of thing?
So what we do is our printers, we put 6 colors on. We're capable of more, but right now we just use for a maximum of 6. And what happens is that ink gets transferred onto a print plate. Let's just call it station 1. So station 1, we always start from light to dark, because if you start with a dark ink and you don't perfectly register that can, that white will get into the dark ink, and then it smudges, and you're not going to get a good image. So we always start with the lightest color, which is usually white or a cream, and then we work our way to the darker ink. So each station has a print plate, okay, on a cylinder. That's what we call registering the can. So one print plate is, let's just say if you have a can red, white, and blue, one plate is going to be red. The next one you have to transfer or register the image up, down, side. The next image is white. Then the next image is blue. You have to combine all 3 and register every single plate to make a full image. That image is what gets transferred onto the print blanket. The print blanket then in turn registers it onto the can, which is on a mandrel that spins. So that's how you register or get an image on the can. Once the image is created, the next step is to put a coat of varnish on.
So the varnish is kind of like a UV coating where it protects the ink.
We have to put a coat of varnish on there because imagine this. If it was strictly ink, shortly after the can gets printed, it goes through an oven. So this way the ink can cure onto the can. If you don't have that coat of varnish, you rub 2 cans up against each other, that ink is going to flake off.
Yes.
So the varnish, imagine it as putting a coat of poly or a coating of urethane on a wood floor to basically protect the floor.
Yep.
The varnish is protecting the ink so that when you rub it up against each other, it doesn't flake off.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be a big problem.
Yes. So once the can has a light coat of varnish on it, it goes through an oven so that this way it can go to the next process. The next process is we actually spray the inside of the can. And that is done for 2 reasons. Protect the product and protect the container. Some soft drinks are higher in citric acid than others, like let's say orange pop, okay, or Coke, Pepsi, whatever contains a high amount of citric acid. So once the can is sprayed, then it goes to an internal bake oven, which on average, that can sits in that oven for about just shy of 5 minutes.
Wow.
Depending on the speed.
Yeah, and this is like the third time it's been in an oven.
Correct.
The can, at this point, that's a lot of ovens.
So yes, it's you wouldn't think so, but we have to be even very careful with temperature so that we don't over anneal the aluminum on the can, because the next process after going through the internal bake oven, now we have to neck the can. So the next process is to travel through what we call the necker. We happen to have machines that use 14 stages to slowly neck a straight wall can to put the neck on it. And the last part of it is folding over what we call a flange. And that flange is for the lid. Once that can leaves the necker, it goes through a light tester. So we put high intensity light and vacuum onto the can. The reason we do that is we're looking for pinholes. So a camera is taking a split-second image of a can, and if it does not see perfect pitch black, it rejects the can. So if you were to have a bad seal, we're going to be throwing away a lot of cans.
Yeah.
There's not supposed to be any light or any loss of vacuum. And if there is, the can instantly gets rejected because obviously it means there's a pinhole somewhere on there. The next step after that, we go through an internal camera. So the internal camera is looking at dents, creases, pleats, which are all inherent problems when you make the process of the can. Not everything is going to be perfect. So the camera looks for any type of defect. Then it goes through an outside camera, which is going to make sure that we don't have a red can versus a blue can, and it's going to reject it to what we train it to. This way, we don't mix labels. Once that can has gone through the cameras and it passes that process, then the last step of it is to put these cans on a pallet so that this way we can ship them to our customers. So there are 21 layers on a pallet. Each layer is 389 cans, 8,169 cans per pallet. So once the cans are palletized, we use plastic sheets in between each layer so there's no contaminant getting into the can. Then we strap that pallet to make sure that the cans are nice and tight because we don't want cans falling off the pallet. Then they go into our warehouse, or they may immediately go into a truck so that we could send it to the filler.
So the point of having the warehouse is sometimes you've got, let's say it's Pepsi, for example, they want to have so much just ready to go.
Correct. So let's just say Pepsi says, hey, we're going to need about 150,000 cases of Pepsi. Well, that's a lot of cans. So we'll make those cans. And if that's their normal order, let's say per week, like Coca-Cola, Coke and Pepsi pull a lot of their core labels every week because that's what most consumers drink. Mountain Dew, whatever. So yes, we always try to have a safety stock so that when the customer does call, we have exactly what they need.
Okay.
What we do try to limit ourselves are the smaller stuff, like let's say a Mountain Dew promotion with X flavor, Baja Blast, or so on and so forth.
I was going to say, if you're probably not stockpiling those special promotion cans,
correct,
right? Like, there's always like, what is it? Pepsi does like Super Bowl cans or something like that, don't they? Because they're sponsors of the Super Bowl always. So it seems like every time around this time of year, they've got the Super Bowl themed can.
Absolutely. So yeah, that's pretty much the process of the can from start to finish is pretty close to 45 minutes.
Oh, that quick.
Yes.
I don't know. That seems quick to me. I don't know. That's amazing. But I suppose that's how you get 2 billion cans a year.
Yes. And I love asking the question whenever we have a new hire. I usually get two strange questions. The thumping that we hear in the background. I love when people ask, is there a disco next door? I was like, no,
we were
not.
Literally sitting here, myself, Andrew, and Franco were like coming up with our own like beats to the beat.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, if that's the case, that's a heck of a subwoofer.
It's strange too, because I have the closest office to the cupping press, or if we're in the conference room, and you don't even notice it. You notice it when it's not running, and then everyone's funny because everyone jumps out of their seat to go see what's going on. Like, hey, why isn't this running? So you notice when it's not running, but you don't notice it when it is running.
Yeah,
correct.
Yeah.
And then the second question I love asking folks is, how many cans do you think we make here a day? And 100,000, 200,000, 300,000. No, we try on average, we strive for 6 million cans a day. That's what we make in 24 hours.
That's incredible.
It is
so many cans.
It is a high speed process.
So how do they fill the cans?
What our customer, any bottler, doesn't matter who it is, they receive the empty container. They offload those cans onto their lines. They are then immediately flipped upside down. Some fillers use high pressure air. Other fillers use purified water to give the can a quick rinse to make sure that there's nothing in there. Then they fill it. It goes through a seaming machine, which then puts the lid on it, seals it, and then from there it goes into packaging.
Okay, so when you put the cans together in the pallet, the lids are they in those pallets as well? Just in a separate
pallet.
Separate pallets.
So those lids come from a different facility. We don't manufacture the lids here.
Oh, you don't make the
top of it, the can.
Oh, okay.
All we make is the container.
Oh, gotcha.
So I
guess I missed that.
Yeah,
part.
so we're considered a 2-piece can plant, but we technically only make one of the 2 pieces here.
So is there a plant nearby that makes the lids, or is that one of your other plants
that we have one in Minnesota, another one in Ohio, and a third one is in Virginia.
Can you tell if you go to the store and you pick up a can you tell if it's from Crown?
Yes.
Is there a serial number or something on there where you're like, oh, I know this came from, Crown and Bradley because it's got this on it?
Yes. Unfortunately, when you run into can makers, that's the first thing we look for. I know I drive my wife up a wall when we go grocery shopping. The first thing I do is look at that can. And if I see any defects, I said, oh boy, I hope that's not mine. Nope, it's not mine. It's the competitor's. So on every can, there is a symbol. This can just happens to be Ball. Okay. But if you see like a Crown logo, that's ours.
Okay.
And next to that, there is what we call a date code. So if the last 4 numbers are 24, we made it. We are plant 24.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah. If I go to the grocery store, I will purposely look for the cans that I made and buy those before I buy anything else.
I'm just imagining Juan going to the store and he's just like, they've got the cans all packet, all up on the shelves very nicely, and he's just taking them all off, looking for the Crown ones. And someone comes, sir, what are you doing? You can't put all of these cans on the floor here. Well, I'm looking for the Crown cans.
Absolutely. That's why I drive my wife up a wall when I do that.
It gets worse than that. I got a 10-year-old daughter at home, and she'll be able to tell me if a can is ours or not. She'll look at it and go, hey, Dad, you guys made this can. Or, hey, no, it's not. It's not ours.
Daddy, why is this in the house?
Yeah. Pretty much. Yeah. She'll call me out for it. And I go, I don't know. I didn't take them all apart like Juan did, I guess.
Oh my gosh. What are some other common questions that you guys get?
Everybody asks us, do we make different sizes? That's usually the most
right. And obviously we've learned that you don't. You're strictly 12 ounce.
Correct.
Yeah.
The newer plants, I would say 15 years on up. That and some of the plants that have the space, they will put in another line. And those are called what we call conversion lines, meaning you can convert from 8 ounce to 12 ounce to 16 ounce. We don't have that.
Is there a minimum of that? Like anyone could call Crown and be like, hey, I need, 1 million cans made.
Yes.
Is there a minimum?
Corporate and our sales team determine that. Okay, we're just like the grease monkeys. We do whatever the customer orders. That's what we follow.
Andrew's question is he wants to know, has there been any changes to the standard aluminum can over the years since you started making aluminum cans? Obviously going from steel to aluminum, that was a big deal because, with the steel cans, it's 3 parts. Aluminum cans, it's 2 parts.
Correct.
But, being that said, has it changed? Has the aluminum can changed that much over the years?
To answer your question, yes. We are always looking for the most efficient way to make a can. Unlike, let's just say, Ferrari or Lamborghini that makes a ton of money off of one car, we make pennies per can. So we always have to find cost savings, whether it be trying to make the can a little thinner. But there's a limit. You can only go so thin with cans. But yes, like changing some of the tooling profiles. The heaviest part of that can is in the dome because that's the one part that doesn't get extruded. The sidewall of the can does. But again, there's limits on what you can. We tried different color, like different coatings for varnish. Can we we're not actually looking for the cheapest product, but what product is going to make us more efficient? Because sometimes it does boil down to you get what you pay for. So if we find a varnish for the can that's a little more expensive, but it makes our lines run more efficient, then it's worth the extra money to spend on it. Okay, washer chemicals. We try to find a way to get away from some of the harsh stuff. We've made milestone improvements to using chemicals since what we did 20 years ago.
Yeah, some of that stuff really would just stink.
Absolutely.
Some of that washer chemical.
But just the world in general. I remember paint back then used to be all oil-based or petroleum-based. Yeah. And now a lot of your paint for homes are water-based. Same thing in the industry. We try to find the safest way to make a can that's most cost efficient. So this way we don't have to constantly pass those costs on. So yes, the can is always ever changing.
And I guess Andrew's question brings up, I was talking to Andrew and Franco about this. I remember when the aluminum can had the mouth of it was smaller. Yeah. It wasn't as big as it is today. It was like, I don't know if it was half that size or the shape was a little different.
I feel like you can remember when that happened because it was such a big change.
It was it was like, a huge thing. Yeah. And I don't remember when, maybe you can enlighten us on like when that happened. I feel like it was around 2000.
Yeah. Pretty close.
Late 90s.
Yes. In the 90s, the top of the lid used to be a lot wider. That we would call the 206 profile. And then throughout the late 90s, 2000s, we ended up going to a 204 profile. So now this profile or the diameter of the lid is called 202. So yes, we are always looking for ways to use less aluminum because Crown as a company, we are very big in trying to reduce our carbon footprint, which is why we have our 20 by 30 sustainability goals. And we're working very hard to achieve those goals. So yes, the less aluminum that we use for the same container, that's what we're all striving for. But that takes engineering and people a lot smarter than me to find those ways. I just run the facility.
Yeah. So this, you said 202 model?
Correct.
How long has that been in production?
I would say late 2000s, 2005,
Okay.
2006. Yeah. And the thickness of the aluminum, that's one of the things I can't talk about. But I remember when I first started making cans, we used to joke that it was boilerplate. So, yes, the thickness of the aluminum can has changed.
Yes, I could even tell that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But that's where, yes, we are constantly ever evolving to make the container.
Right. And as you said, reduce your carbon footprint
Absolutely.
as well. So if you can make it a little thinner, then and it can still do what it's supposed to do, then you're going to do
That's the
it.
idea.
That's the nice thing about
Right.
aluminum cans. It's infinitely recyclable.
Yes, I was just going to point that out too. Is that's why people are trying to push more beverages in cans because you can recycle it as many times as you want. You can't do that with plastic.
Correct.
And
So-
glass, I don't know how glass works.
Not into
I don't-
glass so much, but I
Yeah.
know talking with some of our sustainability people, there have been studies done that by the time the aluminum coil arrives to our plant, we make it, ship it to our bottler, which is our customer. They fill it, seal it, package it, put it into the market. Then the consumer drinks the container, recycles that container. That recycled aluminum gets back to the mill so they can re-smelt it. There have been times where that process is usually less than 75 days. And we can do that infinitely. And you're right, we can't do that with plastic.
Can you tell the difference between aluminum coil that if it's recycled or hasn't been recycled, or if it's new, or is there a difference between?
The answer to that is no. The mills have become so efficient. I believe, and God, I don't want to tell you wrong. I believe most coils now are minimum 60% recycled aluminum. Yes.
So they mix new and recycled.
Correct. Because the aluminum product, yes, that's why it's infinitely recyclable.
Yeah.
Yes.
Do you, because I know you've got, sometimes you have spoilage. Does that go back to Kentucky then?
Correct.
Or does it go to like Belson or anything like that locally? Or
It would go back to the mill.
okay.
Absolutely.
So like when they're dropping off a new coil for you, they're probably picking up, hopefully you don't have much spoilage, but I'm sure there's some. So,
there's always going to be some.
Yeah.
Anybody that tells you that they don't spoil anything,
They're lying.
Yes. Because there are multiple times an hour where we pull random cans off of the line, test them for spray. We have a very strict quality assurance program. We have to. So yes, those cans that you pull off the line, they do not go back to the line because now you're touching it with human hands. So we have to check the measurements, the wall thickness, is the spray, is it 100%? That's what we call metal exposure. We do a ton of testing multiple times throughout the hour for all of our lines. And of course, all of those cans get thrown away.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you didn't do that, I mean, you would have some pretty unhappy customers because they're delivering, they're filling their product in their facility. And it's like, why is there leaking everywhere?
Correct.
Or maybe it doesn't happen there. They deliver it to the store and all of a sudden the store's a mess. There's a bunch of these leaking cans or,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes. So also throughout our process when we're making the cans, I would love to tell you that we will use 100% of that coil. We use a majority of it, but some of the webbing when you're cutting discs into a flat coil, you are going to have leftover webbing. That gets put into, we send that to our bale room, gets put into 30-pound bales. And that gets sent back to the mills.
That makes sense because you're essentially die cutting.
Correct.
So yeah, of course you're going to have pieces that you're not using.
Correct.
So yeah, I didn't think about that until you brought it up. Can you guys think of anything else you want people to know about Crown, or even just obviously this facility in particular?
Yes.
I mean, it's just so cool.
I would hope that people would make an effort to try and recycle. As I said, the aluminum can is infinitely recyclable. I believe it's in the upper 60s of how much we recycle nationwide. That number would be a lot higher if people just didn't throw their can away in the garbage. What we don't recycle ends up into the landfill. And as the can being infinitely recyclable, if we made that extra effort to recycle that, less would go into the landfill. So yes, I would love to get that message out.
And we hope to do that with some of our community involvement that we have there. And actually, we just found out that Juan and I are going to be participating to work with local schools to educate children on recycling cans and recycle programs, and get involved with the schools as well. I think we got signed up for one school that's further a little bit south of Kankakee County, but yeah, I mean, the education there is important because not only is it, great for business, but it's great for the environment as a whole.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I mean, I was an adult when I found out that aluminum cans can be recycled as many times.
Not just you.
As you want. Yeah.
There's others.
It's like, why didn't I know that before?
Yeah.
Because we've been so focused on plastics, and it's like, you can only do that so many times.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Plastic,
Yeah,
so.
and Crown is definitely, like I said, Crown is definitely committed to reducing our carbon footprint. The one thing I will say, yes, that I will tell the consumer, please don't put paper towels, Q-tips, or any other
Garbage,
garbage into the can, because then it becomes a lot harder to, when it does come time to smelt, then they have to get all of that stuff.
Yeah, it becomes
out.
an impurity that doesn't go into the finished product. It creates yield on their end.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That's a good one. I try not to put anything in it. I always rinse it out, and then I put it in the recycle bin. So.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, and as far as crushing it, no, that doesn't matter, because in the end, it's going to get smelted anyway.
Yeah, it's going to get crushed and melt. Yeah, all that stuff.
Absolutely.
So, yeah. Well, Juan and Ray, this has been great. Is there anything else that you would like to add, Ray?
Juan, covered the process in great detail. Like I said, my as far as my individual goal is just being more involved in the community, like which we felt like we've been trying to do, and we've been actually had a lot of help along the way. We've met some great people along the way, and on the Kankakee Chamber of Commerce. I sit on the board of directors for the Economic Alliance. We've been involved in some of the local schools. We've had St. George 8th graders here for plant visits. We're supposed to get involved with, I think, St. Anne as well wants to send some of our high school students here. The Kankakee Career Center. We are no ask or no information. It's just really getting involved with the community and being a part of it, not just for company recognition, but just to contribute back to the community is our goal. So Juan focuses on production. I focus on people and getting us known and being more involved with the community.
Sounds like a win-win to me.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So as long as it's okay with you, we would like to see some of the plant.
Absolutely.
So people get kind of an inside look at what goes on with these cans.
Absolutely. So. Okay. Are you guys ready?
We'll follow
Yes.
All right.
Ready as we'll ever be. This will be fun.
into the necker.
Okay.
This is the can coming out.
Wow. That's pretty cool.
Those are different.
Well, thank you so much, Juan. This was
You're
a lot of fun.
You're welcome. Thank you for coming.
Yeah, absolutely. That concludes this episode of Kankakee Podcast. I'm Jake LaMore. Thank you so much for listening. Please hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. You can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn at Kankakee Podcast. Shout out to Teague Dreenan for supporting the show each month through Patreon. If you want your name announced on a future episode, you can sign up at patreon.com/Kankakee Podcast. Special thanks to our sponsors, Chicago Dough Company, Noble Dairy Queen Stores, Frank's Appliance Center and Sleep Source, King Music, Little Me Studio, D. Westfall Jewelers, and Edward Jones Financial Advisor Adam Elroy. Kankakee Podcast is produced by the fine team at Pathfinder, a full-service marketing agency in downtown Kankakee. You can learn more at yourpathfinder.io. Our theme song is by Lupe Carroll.
This river carries